Hello and welcome everyone to New Earth Consciousness here, and I'm live with Katie Connolly, Connolly, Connolly from Glow Within. She is here to talk to us about, so many things, but really focusing on somatic therapy, bridging science and intuition. She is soon to be a certified counselor, and she has a children's yoga school, which focuses on empowering highly sensitive neurodiverse clients. So thank you, Katie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, excellent. So tell me your journey. How did you arrive in this space, doing what you do?
I think it actually started I know it started when I was a child, like all of our journeys. I have never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I think my mom had an idea. My brother was, my sister wasn't also, but probably should have been. And so she gave me breath and meditation as a gift to help me cope with that, anxiety, etc. So that's really where my journey began. That became like sort of in the backbone for just my toolkit for life. So I was a very sensitive child. I still am a sensitive person, as I think you are, Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a sensitive person, we tend to take a lot on. It's quite a journey to try to unravel and really, I guess, process a lot of what we have taken on. Anyways, fast forward to, I guess I was 22 when I was in university. I was doing my undergrad in business. And I had a near-death experience. Nothing super tragic. That really helped me to let go of, it was like a sudden release of all my childhood trauma and experiences that were holding me back. And so in that moment when I chose to come back into my body, it was for the purpose of connecting to this work. So that's another pivotal point where it really began. I finished my undergrad in international business. I spent a bit of time in the business world, and then I realized I needed out. And so I was floundering for a bit. I didn't know what to do because I was like, oh, I thought I was going down this avenue, and now I was getting strong intuition, particularly after that experience. I needed to go elsewhere.
Wow.
And so I looked at doing my master's in clinical counseling then, actually. I looked at doing master's of education, but I had issues with some of the systems in place in schools then. So I was looking at alternative schools to train in those, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, I ended up going the yoga route. So I didn't have to redo half my undergrad to go into counseling or education. And so that's really where I got reconnected. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Bless you. So I ended up doing my 500 hours, my children's yoga teacher training, pre and postnatal or prenatal. And then I founded a registered children's yoga school. I teach Yoga Alliance teacher training courses. And my journey continued into craniosacral and somatic therapy, and then obviously to finish off with my counseling, which I just did. So it's been a really beautiful, very guided and supported journey, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing that at such a young age you were introduced to breath and meditation. I don't know very many people my age or your age. I'm assuming you're a little younger than I am. That had that experience. I mean, I know I didn't. My parents knew nothing about meditation or breath or any of that stuff. So definitely, what a gift. And
Okay.
so I don't know if you are willing to kind of go into, I'm sure people are kind of curious about the near-death experience. And of course, I think those that do listen to other people's stories about near death, it is often that the person comes back changed.
Mhm.
And I'm curious for you, what was that change specifically? What did you notice changed about you?
Yeah. It was really an opportunity to reconnect with what I recognize as a child. So, um, when I was a child, I guess I was about 11, 10, 11. I used to like create these magazines, and they were like family magazines. So they had fashion, pictures of families, and like quizzes and stuff. And some of the questions I would ask were like, "What are your values?" and like, "What's your life purpose?" etc. So, anyways, I would fill out the questions myself too. And I felt my life purpose was to bring greater peace, love, and joy to the world, and there was a strong element of protecting children.
Mm.
I obviously had no idea how I was going to do that. I was like, okay, it was intuitive.
Yeah.
Um, Now I understand. When I went through my near death experience, I still didn't understand, but I knew I had to reconnect with it and, excuse me, figure it out. Um, but I wasn't ready to yet at that time. I just
Hmm.
knew, okay, I was being guided.
Yeah.
Uh, the 24 hours after, I was literally in tears for 24 hours. I remember calling my mom and um, being like flabbergasted in awe.
Mm.
It was like intense release of the prior years,
Yeah.
of everything that I had experienced. And it was pure joy.
Mm.
It,
Mm.
it Yeah, there isn't really one emotion for
Yeah,
it,
I
but
can imagine.
yeah, it was
Just
beautiful.
everything at once, it seems like.
Yeah,
Joy, bliss, sadness, grief,
yeah,
it all go just all at once. Wow.
yeah.
Hmm.
But it really helped to change my course in an instant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's interesting how I also had I think when I graduated college is when I had a strong pull towards the children as well. Like I just
Mm,
like you when you said I was thinking about getting a master's in education. I was teaching as a substitute teacher in the public school system, and
mhm.
even though I grew up in the public school system, going back to it, I was like, "Whoa, this is really messed up." I was like, "Wow, this is worse than I remember it." And but for me, coincidentally, I ended up in Waldorf education, which felt very, very. It's such a beautiful
So did I.
methodology. You as well.
I studied it too.
Isn't that
That's
interesting?
hilarious. I didn't know that about you.
I didn't know that either. Why did that not come up? Yeah, I mean, it's true. And so I mean, wow, beautiful. I mean, just think about it. I feel like the universe, God, spirit works in such an incredible way because I never heard of Waldorf education. I was not seeking it out. It literally fell in my lap. I was invited to teach at a Waldorf inspired school because I answered an ad in the paper for a Spanish teacher, and they hired me just because
Wow.
of who I was, not necessarily because I had any particular training. But yeah, it's such beautiful work, and I just feel your heart and dedication with the children. Um, can you share with us what does somatic parenting look like? Oh, you fell away. We lost you, Katie. Come back. Oh, no. This, I have to say, Mercury in retrograde has been absolutely phenomenal. In fact, just right before this call, my StreamYard was showing that it started at 11, and on my calendar it said 10. And I don't know if she's going to come back. We might have to if she's not able to come back, we might have to reschedule. But anyway, in the meantime, I guess I'll just keep blabbing away until she comes back. If you're watching this, type in comments. Let me know you're here. Anyway, okay. So yeah, it turns out that Katie and I, we have a lot of similarities with the exposure and the being down, going down the Waldorf. There she is. Oh, no, she's not. Going down the Waldorf path. I taught for a couple of years, and then I was drawn to yoga. I went during my spring break one year as a teacher to attend this retreat, a yoga retreat. And it was at the Shivananda Yoga Ashram, and which unfortunately I do not recommend that ashram, but that's where I ended up. And anyway, it was such a beautiful experience that I knew that I wanted to teach yoga and actually, bring it to the children. And so subsequently, I joined their teacher training program in Valmarin, Canada, shortly thereafter. And it was at that point that I had my Kundalini awakening experience. So so I was doing, I was working through my own healing during that Kundalini awakening for a couple of years. And then I eventually went back to Waldorf education in Tucson, Arizona. And then went on to get my official training in Waldorf teacher education. There she is. I don't know.
Yay, sorry.
It's okay.
Like we were talking about.
I was literally just saying, I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep talking and mention Mercury retrograde. And yeah. So I was just telling the audience about my own journey through. It's interesting how similar, because both you and I were into Waldorf education, and then it was during a retreat. I went on a yoga retreat, which I knew nothing about yoga, and that's when I decided, it's like, oh, I want to learn this and bring this to the children. And but that went on for much longer than I expected, and then I came back to teaching after being involved heavily with yoga. So anyway, so I was asking you the question about somatic parenting, and that's a term I've not heard. I mean, I know that somatic means to be connected with the body. And so what does that look like when you're looking at working with parents?
So it's really, for me, is practice in a few different ways depending on, I guess, the role that I hold. But ultimately, it's about bridging the connection between our body, our emotional body. So you're probably aware of the koshas in the yoga philosophy, which is the layers of ourself.
Right.
We have our physical layer, our energetic body, our emotional body, our cognitive body. So it's really looking at all of those layers. The energetic can bridge with the spiritual as well. So it's really about, first and foremost, helping parents to understand their body and their body wisdom, because like you were saying, many of us were not brought up with that.
Right.
My mom used to ask me, what is your body saying? Which in retrospect, and even when I was at Waldorf, I remember crying, realizing when I was doing my part of my teacher training, realizing just how she brought us up with such wisdom. Anyways, it just like, yeah, it was a very touching moment.
Yeah.
I obviously cry a lot.
Well,
But it's good. It's emotions, right? It's a way to let it out. So anyways.
good. Yeah.
It's back to the question. It's about understanding what our body is saying to us. It doesn't need to be articulated in words. So like the name it to tame it thing. Some children, and particularly sensitive and neurodiverse children, struggle with the naming.
Mhm.
That's not what comes first. So
Mm.
by understanding the sensations of our body, my belly feels hot, for
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
Okay, so what does it look like when your belly is hot? Is there a color with it? Um, and so talking to and with the body, how can we help to move this heat in the body? Is it a sound? Is
Mhm.
it a breath? Do we need to do a silly dance? Do
Mhm.
we need to stomp it out? So how can we use the body to express the emotion? And then once we're able to, I just need to put my tea down,
Mhm.
um, express that emotion in our body, usually then we can come back to that parasympathetic, so that more rest, digest, socialize state,
Mhm.
to be able to understand in a more cognitive way what that emotion was. Maybe it was anger mixed with frustration, mixed with, I don't know, something else.
Yeah.
And so just looking at those three words, you can see it's a very multifaceted way to explore what's going on in the body and move through it, and then we can problem solve. We can't necessarily, even as adults, connect with that rational part of our brain when we're feeling upset or emotional or activated, whatever you want to call it, right?
Right.
It's the sensation that really, and the emotion that really precede the behavior and that cognitive side.
Mhm.
So that's really how we work with it, but it's really giving parents the tools to tune into it first for themselves, so that they can better understand their experiences and be the teacher for their children, like help empower their children, work through it with them, because
Mhm.
ideally who are with them, particularly during these challenging times. So
Yeah.
it's giving parents the capacity first.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I find the work that you do to be really quite beautiful because and important because it just seems like to me that so much in our society right now, even with especially with the influence of technology, right? Smartphones, all of that, that we're becoming increasingly uh, disembodied, disconnected from our bodies, and too much in our heads. Which, as you and I know, Rudolf Steiner really warned us about the effects of that and how important it is for us to. Yeah, he often talked about the head, the heart, and the hands, but um, yeah, there really isn't. It's amazing to me how in education there isn't that awareness, and of course, many, I guess, particularly public school education, they would argue that, well, that's not our job. Our job is to teach reading, math, science, whatever. We're not here to teach, emotional awareness or nervous system regulation or, there's almost like this hard line that's
Yeah.
drawn. It's like, wow, if people would just actually realize that if you tend to that, then children naturally are going to be more open to learn. you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
So
Exactly. And so I feel for the teachers. I really do, because they're in a space by and large, especially like in BC and in Canada,
mhm.
I'm not sure about the US, where they're incredibly under-resourced.
Yeah.
And so it's, to me, it's a systems issue. I actually, in 2011, I had started um, school that blended Waldorf, largely Waldorf, bit of Montessori yoga. I think you and I need to chat later.
Yeah.
And really engaged learning, but stemming from that heart-centered, and nourishing the nervous system and the whole child approach. Um, Anyways, I had to pause that for other reasons, but it's something I stumbled upon again and almost had the opportunity to do, and I'm seriously considering now that my daughter's in kindergarten.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's hard. Like,
It is
it's so
hard.
hard for the teachers.
It is so hard. I mean, I'm impressed that you even had the gumption and the will to start a school. I mean, I've been involved with a few startup schools, Waldorf inspired schools, charter schools, and it takes a lot of energy and dedication to get those alternative spaces up and going. It's a lot. How long did you have that school up and running?
We were running it as summer camps. It wasn't the right
Yeah.
partnership. So I quickly let it go.
Gotcha.
But it's still, I know my work isn't, or I feel my work isn't going to be complete
Yeah.
unless I bring this to life too.
Yeah, you have a vision.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think when you do have children of your own, you really want them to have the best. And I realized that this school that I wanted to create was designed for children like my eldest, which I
Yeah.
assume you can kind of relate to.
Yeah. So tell me about so you've worked with highly sensitive and neurodiverse children.
Mhm.
I know, I mean, of course, I understand the highly sensitive people, but neurodiversity is such a new term. I feel like it's something that's come up in the last 10 years, maybe. I don't remember hearing it as a young adult, or and sometimes I wonder if I myself am neurodiverse. I just have never been never taken the tests or the assessments and things like that. But yeah, just for the sake of those in the audience that maybe aren't familiar with that term, because I do feel it's kind of a new term. And I think that when we look at that term, I can kind of like, guess at what it means, but I know there's so much research. It's just a field within it of itself. So can you talk a little bit about what does that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I actually do lots of presentations for schools. I go into the public school system and I do Pro D days. I don't know if that's what you call them, but where teachers do their teacher trainings.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and I always say, what is neurotypical?
Yeah, what is that?
Right? So neurotypical is supposed to be like a child who develops according to like these set milestones and has a brain that operates the same as everyone else. Who fits that category?
Who anyways, it must be like this narrow,
Right? Right? And so I think the term neurodiversity is beautiful in a way because it really celebrates that we're all diverse. We're all different. We all operate and see things differently. And that's really what makes the world beautiful and unique. So there are a number of labels, obviously, like in the DSM or like whatever medical labels that encompass like sensory processing disorder, autism spectrum, ADHD spectrum, ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, OCD, anxiety, depression, etc. So those are the children that I largely operate with. There's so much comorbidity, which I don't like that word because it sounds morbid, but there's like a lot of overlap amongst all of them, right? Ultimately, the way I see it is these children are all highly sensitive. They are prone to more activated nervous systems. And the world that we live in, just like you were saying, being overstimulated, tends to pull us out of our body. So it becomes really hard for them to, and I don't like this term, but regulate our bodies or understand our emotions, our experience in our body, and to be able to process them in a healthy way, particularly if we don't necessarily have role models who have been able to articulate this and learned it themselves, right? Like most of our generation, we didn't learn to tune into our body and to process emotions sort of in this somatic way that I was sharing. So, yeah, that's really what neurodiversity is. It's basically a different way of processing experiences, essentially. And so like when we look at the autism spectrum, it's a huge spectrum.
Yeah.
Huge spectrum.
Right.
When we look at ADHD, again, another spectrum. So, and the sensory processing disorders, there's 6 different types. So I appreciate the purpose in the labels for getting resources, for getting the medical support, if that's necessary, for having that community, for having understanding of maybe why we do different things we do, the challenges that we've faced in life. However, and this is just me personally, I like to take a step back and look at it more from a nervous system perspective, and how can we, knowing this, support and empower the child or the individual to thrive, because it's a completely unique experience, even if we have 2 or 3 people labeled with the same type of ADHD, for example.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just letting all of that sink in. Yeah, it's yeah, each person is so unique, and so I'm certain that when you work with parents and children, it's not like you give them you know, a list of, step 1, 2, 3, just do this and you're good. It's like
Yeah.
really learning who the child is, like, and you were saying, like, getting parents to recognize their own body signals. I mean, it almost just feels like, as we're like, we're awakening at the collective level. It's like, there's this awakening and this awareness of, like, and for me personally, even though, like, okay, yeah, I've been doing yoga and meditation for a while, but still, it's like, wow, there's just like so many layers and there's so much, I think, reordering and reorganizing and questioning of all the information that we've ever been given, to actually stop for a minute, go, wait a minute, is this still true? And if it isn't, and it's clearly like children are not thriving in school, like, I mean, we're just seeing it, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just not serving the majority of the children, that we need to start being forward thinking, more creative, thinking outside of the box, just stepping out of these sort of mainstream, whatever, methodologies that have been with us for a long time. It's like,
Yeah.
what? It's like our school system, really, I just feel like, wow, it's just kind of like, it hasn't really changed since like the 1950s, or maybe there's no more corporal punishment, but it's like, still we're teaching to the test and we're sitting at desks for too long, and
Yeah.
it's like, wow, what's it going to take? But I love that. I think it just takes, it's taking people like yourself to kind of, educate and shake things up and provide solutions. So, um, before we get off, so how can people find you and work with you? What are you offering right now?
So I just finished my master's, so I'm actually in the process of redoing some of my offerings. I do work in person in North Vancouver. I do craniosacral and some other work in person, and then I do virtual work as well. I have an app by moving my courses soon, because anyways, I have courses online.
Great.
So I have the heart-centered parenting course there online.
Uh-huh.
They can email me, katie@glowwithin.ca, or at the Glow Within You on Instagram, or Glow Within on Facebook.
Beautiful. Yeah. Great. So yeah, if you're watching this and this is resonating for you and you're a parent of a child and I'm assuming any age, right? It's not just little ones, but
Yeah, usually work up to 12.
okay.
Some 16, but yeah.
Yeah, great. So reach out to Katie, send her a message, and check out her website, glowwithin.ca. And Katie, is there anything else you want to share before we sign off?
Thank you for having me, and I want to talk to you more.
We're like hanging in there. Oh my gosh, this was so crazy. We had to reschedule this, and then we got it rescheduled. I thought, yay, we're good to go. And then anyway, it is what it is. So yes, let's talk more. And thank you all for watching. And if you're watching the replay, let us know if you have questions. You can type in the comments also. And please like and subscribe this channel. So thank you, Katie, so much for being here and for your time and your work. All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. All right.